What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Taurean Rain Reloaded channel. If you are new, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, and have your notifications set to all so you can be notified every time I upload a new video or go live. I would greatly appreciate it if you also comment and shared and on your various social media platforms so the word can spread. So today I will be doing a Twitter analysis, and for the first time ever, I will be doing a Twitter analysis on a thread that I made on my page on May 21st, 2022. It was just something that was just weighing down on me in the morning at this time when I posted this. And I said to myself, I'm writing it down in a tweet form because something tells me I'm going to turn it into a video. And I knew that if I tried to make this off of the top of my head, there would be some things that I would miss. And I wanted to make sure that I got all of my points out. Now, the reason why I made this is because I keep thinking about how every time there is a racial attack against black people, you have other black people, unfortunately, will come out and do the same song and dance of, the proximity crime, black people, black on black crime, or we only care about what happens to black people when it's at the hands of white people and all types of stuff like that. And I guess you could say, went on a little rant on this thread. And I'm going to just break down each part of the thread because it's about 5 tweets long. Because, on Twitter, they only give you 140 characters. So we're going to start with the first one. I said, I got a question for black people. Do some of y'all actually think that if proximity crime goes down in our community, that will stop dub-S attacks on us? And I started it off with that like in the form of a question because there's a lot of black people, unfortunately, that think that if so-called black on black crime actually goes down or just says ends altogether, that PC will not attack us. No, that's not how it works. That is not how it works. And I'll give you an example for another community. Look at what just happened in the Asian community a few days ago. Now, keep in mind, I'm recording this on May 21st. By the time y'all see it, it'll be probably a couple weeks later. But there was an Asian man, I want to say he was Chinese, I'm not entirely sure, but he was of Asian descent, who attacked this Taiwanese church in California where I believe he killed 1 person and injured 7 others before they hog-tied him down. Now, I believe it's because he had an issue with people who were Taiwanese. I said, don't think that just because they're in Asia that they all think the same. I said, Asia is a big continent with many nations inside of it. So don't think that it's all, sunny and daisies and all things like that. They have their issues amongst each other. They have their own infighting, but of course they don't highlight it nearly as much as it when it comes to us. But they make sure to not say Asian on Asian crime, even though that's what it can be pegged at. I even mentioned it in one of my live streams and said, if I have any California subscribers who follow me, how long did they talk about it? Someone told me the longest they talked about it was like 2 days. And then after that, they didn't talk about it anymore. It only trended on Twitter for like a day. Now, granted, it could be because it happened the day after what happened in Buffalo. But at the same time, it did trend. And it was trending #1. And Buffalo was #2. So it did make the masses. But they didn't talk about it as much. They made sure it stayed in for a little bit and then died down. That's why I asked people who lived in California in particular, how long did it stay in the news? Because I knew they wasn't going to spread it out as far as they did Buffalo. Then I said, I get so tired of hearing that talking point from us. And honestly, I don't even think it started with us. And it didn't. Honestly, that talking point, in my honest opinion, started with PC people. Think about it. They love to peddle that, oh, y'all make 13% of the population and commit 50% of the crime. And then they started padding the stats and all types of stuff. We know where the talking point came from. It's just sad that other black people peddle that same talking point. I don't know why or what you expect to gain from it. So that's the first part of the thread. I go on to say, I believe it came from PC and trickled down to us, and now we can't stop saying it. Then if you say, I bet other communities don't utter these words, the rebuttal is, I'm not worried about what other communities do or don't do. And then I said, apparently you do, in order to come to the original statement because, and I'm stopping right there because it goes on to another part. And I basically said, I already addressed the first sentence, and I said, then if you say, I bet other communities don't utter these words, the rebuttal is, I'm not worried about what other communities do or don't do. I think that's cap. I think a lot of other communities do. I think a lot of black people do worry about what other communities do because they want so bad for black people to be like just like those communities. My thing is, many of you don't even live amongst a lot of those other communities to know what it is that they do or don't do. And for those of you who do, I'll give you an example. Look at what happened with that black family in Texas who lived in a nice neighborhood who had that PC boy, that spawn of Damian Thorne, as far as I know, came up to the door, banging on the door with a bullwhip, threatening to want to whip this black girl with a whip. Then the father goes over and confronts his dad, and he pulls out a gun. They weren't in the hood when that happened. They were in the suburbs. So when people think that, oh, this kind of crime can only happen amongst black people, no. You'll be surprised what goes on and what black people deal with in those suburban areas, especially if they are one of the few black families that are there. Interesting, right? Then they said, apparently you do in order to come to that original statement because, let me move on to the next one. It says, who else did you get that talking point from? I actually saw some black people really try to throw what happened in Buffalo back onto other black people. And I'm not talking the usual suspects, and I'm talking about those Sambos. It says some of them are some of the same scared Negroes who thought that with Chris Dorner, Micah Johnson, and it goes into Gavin Long. Many people don't even know who those people are still to this day. And what's even shocking is some people don't even know who these people are, and they live in the same state as where they were carried out. Because Chris Dorner was in California, Micah Johnson was in Texas, and Gavin Long was in Louisiana. But you have a lot of black people that do this and still continuously do it. And it literally shifts from where it should be back onto us yet again. Yet again, we are the bad guys of our own narrative. And I don't know, it says Gavin King, it says Gavin Long. It says did was morally wrong. Also keep in mind, it didn't take quote unquote proximity crime for our ancestors to be lynched. It was just existing, you goddamn goofies. You think what Peyton Gendron did last week was because of black on black crime? No. And basically I had to go back into history because for some reason, some black people have seemed to have forgotten that black people were lynched just because they probably were in a place where they, weren't supposed to be, or just because they were existing. And they loved that, as far as the attire, black people for the most part back then were wearing nice clothes, like, dress up in suits, or the women were wearing dresses, dressed nice, way far removed from how we are dressed today. And it wasn't because of quote unquote black on black crime, because proximity crime, as far as black on black crime back then, was not really a thing. It wasn't really a talking point, but they pushed it as a talking point now to try to push this narrative that, well, if they don't care about themselves, then, I'll help them get out fast. And I'm kind of jumping ahead because I actually talk about that a little bit later on in this thread. But what Peyton Gendron did wasn't because of black on black crime. And if he did mention it in his manifesto, he didn't really harp on it too much. He said what he said, immigration. I know he genetic annihilation, because he definitely had a lot to say about black men. Not really so much black on black crime. It's just the mere fact of existing. Being black in America is a problem. I go on and says, no, because if that was the case, he would have traveled 3 hours to do what he did, because in his mind and by his logic, those niggas are taking themselves out. So I don't have to do anything. If anything, what was going through his mind is that we weren't taking ourselves out fast enough. If we were committing the level of crime that they claim that we do at these high numbers and saying we were taking ourselves out, he would still do what he did. And the thing is, if we were so-called taking ourselves out in proximity crime in a not fast enough pace, like I said here, he would go there and feel like, okay, we need to speed this up because they're not doing what we had hoped that they would do. So it begs the question, how fast are we moving as far as the push for us to take our own selves out? Which I end off with this one where I said, if anything, what was going through his mind is that we weren't taking ourselves out fast enough. So let me speed up the process by doing what he did. Unfortunately, many don't think that far ahead, or let alone think at all. Got that big ass head with nothing in it but space and air. And I stand firmly on everything that I said in this thread. Point blank, period. It is what it is. And this is the part where we, as black people, have to start checking our own when they say ridiculous things like that. Because they're going to continue to do it. I bet you they're going to continue to do it. The next time, unfortunately, because there might be a next time that this happens, they're going to bring up that same talking point again. Like I said, with the Sambos, we know what their talking point is. Black on black crime, Chicago, Baltimore, LA, New York, all the black areas. With this one, they brought up, what was it, Waukesha, however you pronounce it. They tried to link what happened there with this as far as a talking point, and there's no comparison, because when that guy did what he did, it wasn't based on race. He was just crazy. What that guy did on that subway in New York had nothing to do with race, and he didn't just kill one particular group of people. It was a mixture of people that he killed. This guy did it solely based on race. Let's stay on topic. But they always have to try to pull a narrative to try to deflect away from this. You even had that damn Brandon Fakem try to say that his manifesto had merit. What? But we already know how he is. And the Coonstras, those two are like literally the same people, just two different genders. Both of them are bitches, if you ask me. But But yeah, that's my take on it.